Hey, Divine Leader, welcome to this episode on the power of mentoring with ascended masters. Now, if you're here, what I know about you is that you are on a path of your own evolution and consciousness, and that you are also leading the evolution in consciousness. And the power that comes from mentoring, partnering with the ascended masters, with guides, is really exponential. And so we're going to dive into that today because it's something that isn't really talked about that much. And there's a lot to be garnered from it. And my sense is as well that there's going to be a channeled message as a part of this episode around really the role of especially the spiritual woman in the evolution in consciousness. So whether you call the evolution in consciousness ascension, or you call it moving into the Aquarian age from the solar plexus into the heart, or you call it awakening, or you call it really your higher consciousness, there, or becoming enlightened, whatever context you call your evolution, your personal growth, your spiritual growth, there comes a point where you're in an evolutionary stage where having beings, guides, mentors, individuals around you that have how to say a higher perspective than you may be tapping into is really what moves the needle. So you see this in the physical plane in terms of hiring a coach, hiring a mentor, hiring an incredibly adept practitioner to assist you in your growth, in your evolution. And this is a very common experience. If I was to ask you to write down how many coaches or practitioners or mentors you've worked with, how many workshops you've taken, how many classes you've had that you've shared, your list would probably be pretty long. Because if you're hanging out with me for any amount of time, it's not your first rodeo. You're devoted to your spiritual growth. You're devoted to your path of evolution. You're devoted to making a difference on the planet. And so part of what attracts us to mentors in the physical plane, what the guides call bipedals, humans having two legs, two eyes, two ears, two hands, two arms, that what attracts us to mentoring with someone often is that they're further along in their evolutionary process than we are. So that may mean that if we're in business and we are starting our business, we may be attracted to a mentor who is seasoned in their business. If we're looking to shift our money mindset, it might be that we if we're at six figures, that we look for a coach that has created seven figures. If we're looking to write a book, we find a coach who has written a book. So this is kind of the example, and this is very familiar to you of how it works. Usually we're drawn to someone that has created what it is that we desire. They're kind of in that, if we're here and we want to be there, they're in that there spot, and or hopefully they're in that end spot. And yet also, as practitioners, healers, coaches, light workers, you can also facilitate others' transformation by being just really good at what you do. So I also have seen highly effective mentors who can consistently create, assist, or facilitate a certain breakthrough or result in their clients' experience, even though they haven't fully created it for themselves. So that's a little bit of a caveat, because I also see that one of the ways that spiritual entrepreneurs stop themselves is thinking like, oh, how can I help someone with this if I haven't done it myself, or I have to be perfect, or I have to take another certification. All that's just illusion lies. So this exemplifies how we're attracted to mentors for that up level, for that hand up, for that, okay, yes, I can probably figure this out on my own. And yet I don't want to take 25 years to do it. You've done it. Let's consolidate the experience. And so this is something that's very natural. It's something that you've experienced. It's a part of the wider collective consciousness. It's not the first time that you're kind of tuning into this concept of hiring a coach, hiring if you hire a personal trainer, and you want to be able to have a lower percentage of fat, or have stronger muscles, or you want to hike the Camino, or you want to do a triathlon. You hire a personal trainer to assist you to get there. So I feel like that concept's pretty clear. And so how does this translate to mentoring, partnering with ascended masters? What the guides talk about, like, we're beings of light incarnate, which is what our divine light activation program really assists you in doing, is activating yourself, embodying your light being self, and they're light beings in light. The guides are in light. They're moving at a higher frequency, and so they're non-corporeal, they're non-incarnate, or let's just simplify it to say they're beings of light in light. So we're beings of light incarnate, and the guides, the ascended masters, are beings of light and light. And as we circle back to how I opened this podcast, of really about the evolution in consciousness, and whatever you call it, there's an evolution, there's a movement that you're becoming more aware or awake, or you're evolving into a higher vibration. And I'm going to be starting to talk about this a lot more in the physical body's role in that, because if you've been tuning in as well, you know I'm an avid mover. I love hiking and um, all the things movement, and it has a huge role in our spiritual evolution, the physical body. But that's for another episode. That's kind of what's coming, and yet, how does this relate to really the power of mentoring with ascended masters? Well, when we're looking for who has a higher consciousness on the planet, or who has a higher consciousness, who's where we're headed, the ascended masters are ascended. They have ascended. They have ascended masteries in multiple areas. They're vibrating at a higher consciousness. So I've been partnering with guides, with the ascended masters, for 25 years at the time of this recording. And wow, I mean, just like game changing. And to have the curriculum that they have dropped, you know, what they have downloaded, in terms of also what's come through divine transmissions, in terms of the divine light activation, about how to really be a light being incarnate, or the Magdalene codes of love, how to really open our horizontal field. These are there's steps or stages or spirals on our ascension path. So yes, absolutely, we're also drawn to spiritual leaders and spiritual mentors that embody their walk their talk, and are vibrating at a higher consciousness. However, for me, there came a point where it just became a given, or so natural, to to not only be partnering with bipedals, because I'm a big stand of having my own practitioners and coaches, and even though I have my direct connection with the guides and source, uh, yeah, to it really became non-negotiable to be partnering with the ascended masters. And this was and is such an accelerant. It's an activator. Now, what you may be saying to yourself is, well, yes, Danielle, you partner with the ascended masters and have a relationship with your guides. But that's because there's something special about you, and maybe you think like that's not for you. And yet I want to really share that it's all of us have access to the ascended masters, to guides, to higher bandwidths of consciousness, to the divine, God, goddess, great spirit, all that there is, source. And so when we're mentoring with the ascended masters, there is this entrainment, there is this imprint. These words I don't love so much, but I'm just kind of getting to the words that really represent. There's the same kind of thing where the coach is seeing and holding us as the individual that we're aspiring to be. The guides, the ascended masters, hold this gorgeous, like extraordinary, elegant, vibrational space and invitation for us to be acclimating and imprinting and entraining to our own divine selves. So on the path of ascension, that it makes sense to have ascended masters on your team, on your support team, especially in the new paradigm, because the new paradigm is a shift from the do it alone mentality to this moving into the space where you're very much co-creating, partnering, connecting to this expanded consciousness, this expanded consciousness. And on the physical plane, I just want to give you a few examples for me. So I believe it was 2005, where I brought in my first body of work directly with Source. And this is why I've been so passionate about assisting other individuals to partner with Source to scribe your new paradigm modality or your difference making book or your legacy work, your opus level business. And so much changed for me with that. There was so much personal evolution because the bodies of work were so customized as well to my own evolutionary stage. And then also on the physical plane, things really opened up where I was assisting more individuals and had more of a global reach and was generating more of fulfillment and also financial flow, because there's a certain vibration as well to when we're creating from our connection with source. Now, it's going to look like you. It doesn't necessarily look like the way that it looks for me, yet to really have that deep connection to and partnership with mentoring with the guides in your own unique way. And so it may be that your mentorship with the guides and the ascended masteries is through being a part of Divine Transmissions offerings, because you may say yes, and I encourage you to have a direct relationship with your guides, and you may say yes, and why not be with someone who is an ascended master channel, who has a lot of experience of years of working with the guides like I do. And yet it's going to look like you. Maybe your way of mentoring with the ascended masters is in this kind of connecting to your higher self and receiving your higher self guidance. Maybe it's that you work with the Akashic records, like Thoth Tahuti Jehudi, one of my main guides, keeper of the Akashic records, infinite knowledge, scribe, and ascended master communication, ascended mastery in many different areas at once, yet there's always a similarity. And for me, and what I've seen with Toth as he came into my scene and as he comes into others, it's kind of like the healer's healer, the teacher's teacher, the leader's leader. And to be in that place of empowerment, of really mentoring at that level. And so it may be that your way of partnering with the guides is that you do kind of like a call and answer where you're writing, where you have a question and you ask the guides a little bit like the is it Neil Donald Welsh, the Conversations with God, that you have conversations with the guides where you write back and forth, or you read the Akashic records, and that's one of the ways you access. Or it may be that you channel, or that you have like a gut instinct. It's gonna be different for you, and look and feel like you. So just to recap, and then I want to bring in the guides for this channeled message, because they also really wanted to talk about the role of the spiritual woman, especially in the evolution in consciousness. And so to recap, there is so much power and potency and to garner from mentoring with the ascended masters. They are the natural, from my perspective, the natural mentors or teachers when it comes to ascension, when it comes to evolving our consciousness, because they hold a vibrational set point that's higher than ours. They have experience in and awareness of where it is as well that we're heading. And I remember one time I wrote this list of like 100 things I love about hanging out with guides and Toth in particular. And there's also just this impeccable uh, respect and encouragement, and what we speak about in the visionary heart activation of divine to divine, of really holding that place of divinely matching us as our most fully realized self. And so for me, that where, and especially I think for the evolution in consciousness that we were at, in terms of a lot of power under, power over stuff that's natural to show up in some ways in the hierarchy of client and mentor, there's just none of that. It's really this peer-to-peer, divine to divine, light being to light being, without the overlays of these agendas or the overlays of the old paradigm. So I feel like, and that there's been such a deep healing for me personally of mentoring with the guides around that impeccability. It's like it's reminding me of this one coach that I worked with, and I didn't work with him for very long, but I did work with him privately and pretty intensively. And he held the divine masculine energy just so clearly. And yeah, I had hired him for some other stuff, but like, there's a thing that's underneath the thing. And the thing that was underneath the thing was for me to be supported by a masculine coach in the physical form who was so clean in that masculine energy. And that was so healing for me. That was so incredible to have that. And so it's similar to that in the sense of mentoring with the ascended masters, is that they hold this you are divine energy so cleanly, so clearly, so crisply, that it helps us to reconfigure any confusion or any overlays that we have around giving away power or deferring to a mentor. Or because I remember too, like I'd be asking the guides for this and that, and it's like your free will and conscious choice, Danielle. What are you choosing? What do you desire? And that respect of being divinely matched and how extraordinary it is. So, okay, I feel like that's enough for me. And it was a lot, really juicy conversation so far. And I'm going to bring in the Ascended Masters. I'm just taking a moment to connect. Hello, dear one. This is a panel of Ascended Masters moving more to the forefront of this divine transmission, and we are delighted to connect with you. Our message is simple today. It is that you have a key role in the evolution in consciousness, that the spiritual woman has a key role in the evolution in consciousness. And anywhere that you may have been, let's say, downplaying or wondering if you're making a difference or underestimating this role that you have in the evolution of consciousness, we would invite you to choose again, to choose to take your seat as a spiritual leader, to choose to recognize the ripple effect that you have every now moment that you are connected to a higher vibration, a higher state of consciousness, and you are embodying your spirituality, your connection with source. That is not only a stabilizing factor during this very accelerated awakening, it also is pivoting the energy from the out of balanced patriarchal focus, the out of balance masculine energy, into a greater sacred union or divine wholeness. So, as we are transmitting in a very potent way, for this is the power of mentoring with the Ascended Masters episode, we will keep this brief. Spiritual women, you have a key role in the evolution in consciousness, and we are extending our love and appreciation to your contribution to the evolution in consciousness. All is light and love, and we are all.